Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm going to try something a little bit different here. Going to do a screen recording to go over the reading that I had you guys do earlier this week and get you ready for the big speech that Portia is going to give in Act 4, Scene 1. So, where we left off, I had you guys finish reading Act 3 and then reading Act 4 up to the point where Portia enters. So if you look on the screen here, I have a copy of Merchant of Venice on the left. That's the version that's the same as what your book is. And on the right is the study guide, Act 3 through 5 study guide. So the question that was asked, the last question for Act 3, number 6, was, what do we know about Portia's plan at the end of Act 3? And how does this connect to what happened earlier in the play? So if you look on the left here, Portia is going to be speaking to her servant, whose name is Balthazar, and she is asking him to take a letter from her and deliver it to her cousin, Dr. Bellario. And that's a character that we haven't met yet. So it's not any name that's popped up anywhere or that you should be familiar with, but it is her cousin. And then she tells her servant to look at what notes and garments he doth give thee, bring them with imagined speed unto the common ferry which trades to Venice. So what Portia is asking her servant here is to take this letter to her cousin and then to bring the notes and garments from him to her, to the ferry that is going to be headed towards Venice. So this is giving us an idea about Portia's plans for Act 4, that she has intentions to go to Venice. As far as the notes and the garments, we don't really understand at this point what that's going to end up, what the significance of that is going to end up being. But then Portia tells Nerissa after that, here, that we'll see our husbands before they think of us. And when Nerissa questions her about that, she says that they shall see us, they shall, but in such a habit that they shall think we are accomplished with what we lack. And then she tells Nerissa that when they are both accoutred like young men, meaning dressed as young men, that she'll be the more attractive of the two. And so we know that Portia's intentions here are to go to Venice, to interact with her husband, and for Nerissa to do the same with her husband, but to do it disguised as men. And the rest of this speech is her talking about how she's going to act as a man, how she's going to speak and dress and walk and talk and all that. But this is the second part of this question was how this relates to what's happened earlier in the play. And that would be from earlier in Act 2 when Jessica left, the other female. You remember there's only 3 female roles in the entire play. Jessica, when she ran away from her father and took the gold and the jewels to run off with Lorenzo, she also disguised herself as a man. She furthermore tells Nerissa that she's not going to tell her whole plan now, but she'll let her know as they are on their way to Venice. So she'll tell her whole device later. So the audience is going to be surprised by that as well. And you know that what that type of irony would be situational, that the audience is not aware what's going to be happening. So as I said, we could skip scene 5. It's transitional. It's not relevant. It's basically Lorenzo and Jessica talking to Lancelot a little bit, joking around, and then also talking about how they feel about Portia, whom they just met. But then Act 4, Scene 1, which is the longest scene in the play, and really the most important probably as far as like the theme of the story. It starts off, and it's a court case. It starts off with the Duke and others assembled for this trial, which is basically Shylock trying to collect his bond from Antonio, the Pound of Flesh. And Antonio's attitude here is very sort of melancholy, that he's given up hope. That's his personality, and that he's not expecting Shylock to change his mind. But you see, when Shylock enters, the Duke is going to ask him basically whether he's going to show mercy towards Antonio for his situation, this unfortunate situation that's happened to him. And that's going to establish the theme of this act, which is going to be mercy. And so the Duke is making this request. He tells Shylock that, look, I think basically that what you've done here is come up to the very edge of collecting this pound of flesh, but that now that you've gotten to the point where you would actually harm Antonio, that you would back away and let him live. And that you would feel sorry for him, as he says, give an eye of pity on his losses, and that basically, be a nice guy about it. Now, it's important to note the Duke, who is a new character in the play, is the leader of Venice. And so he's not the judge, but he is the political leader of the city. And so it's a pretty important person here who is asking Shylock to do this. Shylock's response, however, is that he's not going to show mercy. He says that you can't deny it. I've told you what I want. I've sworn upon this, and that basically I would rather have the flesh than the 3,000 ducats. And I don't really need to justify that other than to say it's what I want, right? So it's my humor. If my house were troubled with a rat and I wanted to pay 10,000 ducats to have it eliminated, that would be acceptable. And so I don't like Antonio, and he's like a rat to me. And so basically I'm seeing this as a way of paying money to get rid of him. And basically, as he says here, I can give no reason, nor will not, more than a lodged hate and a certain loathing I bear Antonio, that I follow thus a losing suit against him. And so that's going to pretty much answer questions 1 and 2 from Act 4. And the next question, as Bassanio is there now and others are trying to argue with Shylock, Antonio's friends are trying to argue with Shylock to not take this pound of flesh. And Antonio gives a speech where he says basically not to waste your time, that you are basically, it's not worth the effort. He's not going to change his mind. You might as well try to stop the ocean from coming to the shore, or to try to reason with a wolf who kills the lamb. And so that's going to establish an important symbolism here in this act, that Antonio is representing the sacrificial lamb, and Shylock is a bloodthirsty wolf. So he asks his friends to stop it, but Bassanio will continue to offer money to Shylock to stop, or to not collect the pound of flesh. And he offers 6,000 ducats. He doubles it. Shylock's response is that he doesn't care if you took each ducat and multiplied it by 6 parts. He would not take it. He wants the pound of flesh more than the money. It means more to him. And the Duke asks him then, how should you expect mercy if you don't give mercy? And Shylock's saying that he hasn't done anything wrong, so he doesn't need to worry about this question of mercy. And that's going to really set up, like I said here, the important part of where Portia's going to come in, and what I want you guys to look at today, the speech that Portia gives and the assignment that I'm going to give you. It's going to be related to that. So when after Shylock gives that speech about basically he wants only the law and his bond and not anything else, the Duke mentions that the person who was meant to come and hear the case was Bellario. And so just talking about that character in the end of Act 3, that was Portia's cousin. And so now we kind of start to understand there's some connection between the letter that Portia had her servant Balthazar deliver to her uncle and the court case. And then it's announced that the doctor has sent a letter, Dr. Bellario has sent a letter in his place. And so when the clerk enters to deliver the letter, it's Nerissa, but she's disguised as a man, right? And so when the Duke says, "Oh, you came from Bellario," and Nerissa, disguised as a man, says, "Yes, I did," and then she gives the letter to the Duke to read, while Shylock is basically sharpening his knife to prepare to cut the pound of flesh from Antonio. And what ends up coming out here is that Bellario's letter is requesting that a young doctor be allowed to enter the court to decide the case. And that young doctor is going to be Portia in disguise as a man. And so somehow we don't really understand how she had the knowledge that her uncle was involved with this case, and that she was going to be able to somehow be involved or insert herself into the situation by contacting him and obtaining clothing from him and letters from him that allowed her to do that. So when the Duke it brings Portia in, the letter is read and basically saying that I'm sick, I can't make it, but in my place, I want this young doctor in my place to be the person to decide, and his name is Balthazar. So Portia here is taking the identity of her servant, or the name of her servant at least. And when it says doctor, it's not medical doctor. We're talking legal doctor or scholar here. And Bellario says, I've basically told him about the case. We've looked it over, and I told him my opinion, and this person is really qualified to come in and to decide this case in my place. And so the Duke then welcomes Portia in, and again, disguised as a man, as Balthazar. And you have to, kind of realize that her husband, Bassanio, and Shylock, and anyone else doesn't recognize the fact that this is a woman disguised as a man, or who this is. And so Portia starts off by telling Shylock, look, this is an unusual situation, but it's an agreement that basically you have a contract, so you're protected. And Shylock's going to like to hear that. And then she does say to Shylock, though, that you need to be merciful. And then he says, well, why do I need to be merciful, right? And then Portia's going to give this big speech here. And this is beginning with the quality of mercy is not strained. And so I want you guys today to finish reading Act 4. And then I'm going to be posting something and watching also in the movie. I'll post the times on there. But then I'm also going to be posting something online that's going to relate to this particular speech that Portia is going to give about mercy that I want you to complete. And that'll be the first thing that I'll have you submit this week. And then a couple people have asked me, but as far as the Act 3 through 5 study guide, you want to just keep answering those questions as you go along. So for today's, that would be, where is it? Number 5, and number 6, and number 7, and number 8, 9. No, sorry, number 8. It would end with number 8. I didn't put a divider there. For Act 4 is going to end with question number 8. So you want to answer the rest of those questions, starting with 5 and then ending with 8. And then, like I said, I'll have it posted for you, the assignment for you to do also with the mercy speech that Portia gives, and that should pretty much cover it with Act 4. And then I'll come back. I'm probably going to be doing these every day, even if it's just a short video, just to kind of go over some things and touch base. And then you can expect work that's going to relate to that, or also from maybe discussion boards that I'll be posting. So as we're finishing the play, and you're finishing the study guide, there'll be a couple more assignments that are going to pop up, whether it's going to be a written assignment or something that you can do on a discussion board like a class discussion. So I'll be filling you in on that. And then if we don't, if we're not back in school by the time we finish the play and the Act 3 through 5 study guide is due, we'll talk about how I can collect that from you. And then also be aware the quarter ends next Tuesday, which is the 24th. So if you are in need of some makeup work or you have some classwork issues or whatever that need to be taken care of, feel free to email me. I hope you guys are doing well, like I said, and stay tuned until next time we have class. Thank you.